Hey, I'm so glad that each of you has decided to jump in and check out these studies. Just to give you an idea of what to expect, each week you guys as a group will have a chance to watch a 10-minute video, and then afterwards we've designed some questions for you. And so the videos, they all talk about what it takes to grow spiritually and what that looks like in our lives, and then the questions kind of follow along that same theme. But the questions are designed to be a tool for you, so if you find them helpful, use every single one. And if you find any of them unhelpful, feel free to throw them out. Our big goal for our time together is that you guys have a chance to connect with each other and to learn a little bit more along the way. And so I hope that you enjoy these next several weeks and hope you enjoy the studies you're jumping into.
If you're taking a trip of some distance, a great many decisions have to be made before you ever take that trip. There is this opportunity you have to clear your schedule to make sure you have time for the trip. You have to estimate the cost and form some kind of budget for the trip, and then you have to define your destination. Usually you end up making a plan on how you're going to get from point A to point B for your trip. A few years ago, part of that process would be to consult an atlas or a map. Nowadays, of course, people don't have atlases or maps. Now we use Google Maps or some kind of app on your phone to determine how you're going to get to your destination. So when it comes to taking a trip, all this just makes sense to us. If you want to get to your desired destination, you have to have a plan. Zig Ziglar said a number of years ago, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. And this idea of having a plan to get to our destination isn't just true for taking a trip. The idea is true for a whole bunch of other areas of our lives as well, like healthy relationships. A newlywed couple that begins their lives together with the understanding that saying I do in a wedding ceremony is all that's required for a healthy marriage, well, they're soon gonna run into a rude awakening. This is also true for healthy finances. Receiving a paycheck does not ensure that your financial needs will always be met. Finances require good planning. Healthy finances require tracking and monitoring of savings and investments, and they require some idea of an end goal, especially as we near a retirement age. This idea of a plan is also true for healthy levels of fitness. If there's no plan for fitness, then we will become rather unhealthy in a short time. Eventually, this steady diet of Doritos and pizza when we were young has to be replaced with fruits and vegetables as we age. And a plan to get in shape or keep in shape through exercise is usually part of how we get healthy physically. And guess what? Having a plan and keeping a plan is part of a healthy spiritual life as well. Andy Stanley was speaking to this when he coined the phrase, "It's your direction, not your intention, that determines your destination." For decades, maybe even centuries, good Christian people have had good intentions when it came to spiritual growth and development. Unfortunately, instead of having a defined direction, Christ followers have often relied solely on their intention of spiritual maturity or for spiritual maturity. Good intentions are helpful, but unless we are actually moving, then what we intend is largely irrelevant. We can intend to move, but ultimately not move at all in our spiritual lives. So all this sort of leads to the question, what is your personal plan for spiritual health and spiritual maturity? I would anticipate that some of your answers would go something like this. I started attending church again. Or maybe I joined a small group. Maybe someone would say, I'm starting to read through the Bible or trying to read through the Bible in a year. Maybe you have begun the practice of praying on your way to work. When I was growing up, in the church, it seemed like everybody kind of followed the same plan for spiritual growth and maturity. We went to church, and eventually, after we attended a few weeks, we got involved in Sunday school, which is kind of like a small group that happened on a Sunday morning. Maybe we even attended something called revival meetings in the church I grew up. in. And those were these times when we would have an outside speaker come in, and they would speak for maybe a week every night and share and motivate and encourage us to deepen our commitments to Jesus. All these are great things, and they hold fond childhood memories for me. But is there a plan behind all that activity? How do I know if I'm actually moving anywhere spiritually? I always kind of resisted the purely corporate idea of spirituality and spiritual growth because it seemed so random and so ineffective. Come to church and then put you in this small group and hope we grow spiritually. Somehow we produce saints. I know it is a lot more than I'm describing here, but it sort of feels like if a person gave their heart to Jesus and got involved in a small group and maybe even attended revival services, then they found a way to grow spiritually. My reaction to all this dissatisfaction with my corporate understanding and corporate plans for discipleship pushed me toward developing personal disciplines and for my spiritual growth. For years, I would read through the Bible. And it's just what I did. Every morning I got up and read 2 or 3 chapters of Scripture. There was a season of my life where I would try to learn to pray and to pray more intensely, to pray more effectively. I would write prayers down. There was a season where I memorized passages of Scripture. I would tithe with what God had given me in my income, and then I would give offerings above and beyond that. I sang songs and would try to grow spiritually by learning the hymns or learning the latest course or anything I could do to connect with God. Well, I would try it. But here's where that journey kind of left me. While all those practices were good for me and are still part of my spiritual life today, I still had no idea where I was going. I would hear pastors say, the goal for me is to be like Jesus. In fact, I say that, and I say it a lot. Most of us would agree that that's a good thing, but what does that really look like? And if being like Jesus is the destination, well, how in the world do we get there? So let me ask you, do you have a plan for your spiritual growth? Like you do maybe your finances, or like you were taking a trip? Or are you just kind of along for the ride, assuming you're going to get to your desired destination, but you really have no idea how you're going to get there? When it comes to your spiritual life, do you have good intentions, but have never really set a direction